Hey, and welcome to Genre Chat. I am Caleb Walton, and this is my co-host, Sherry Lynn Bisbano. And today our guest is the award-winning author, Lynette Eason. Hey, Lynette, how are you?
Hi, I'm great.
That's great. We're going to be talking today about romantic suspense novels. I know that's kind of your specialty, and it's honestly my personal favorite to read in. So how did you choose to start writing in romantic suspense and in like thrillers? What got you interested in that genre?
Well, when I was a kid, I was really into Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, anything with suspense. The romance kind of came a little later. I I started reading the Harlequin books, and I thought, I can. This is great, but I didn't like some of the content, and I was like, I really wish there was like a faith-based romance.
Mm-hmm.
Romantic suspense type stuff. And so I just started, I was like, well, maybe I could write one of these. And so I decided to try my hand at it. And 10 years later, I got published. 8 years, actually. Yeah.
Wow. So how long have you been writing? How long have you been writing, like, as a career?
As a career, let's say my first book was published in 2008. So 10 years. 10 years, yeah. And I started writing before that. Obviously, I was, going to conferences and learning the craft and that kind of thing. And but I got I got the call in 2007. The first book came out in February 2008.
That's great.
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing that you've learned about the genre? I know you did a lot of reading in it, growing up and, as an adult. What's the biggest thing that you learned that surprised you about suspense novels?
That surprised me? Just the whole process, like really like how hard it was to get your foot in the door. And you can have a really great story in your head, but getting it into the computer is a whole different ballgame. And I was reading something the other day, I think it was something Ted Decker put out, and he's like, even if your prose is not perfect and you don't have every aspect of the craft down, which we are always learning something, no matter who you are, as long as you tell a good story, then that's what's going to sell. And it's really a story that counts. And so when you can match that with good writing, then you got a winner. And it's really hard to get those two together.
Absolutely. I'm an aspiring writer too, so I'm learning that. I'm learning the same thing. So
me too.
One thing I like about your novels is, as well as including the romantic element, you also, I know in the Elite Guardian series, there was a lot of family dynamics between like the protagonists, like the children and their siblings and all that. How did you incorporate that in there? What was some of the methods you used?
Well, I think most of it is just imagination. Growing up, I had one younger brother who pretty much just got on my nerves all the time. So we're great friends now, but when you're, so I think a lot of it was just like what I wanted as a kid. I wanted a big family. I wanted all those brothers and sisters. I grew up with wonderful parents. They're, godly Christian parents. And so I had that aspect, which was, obviously a true blessing. And I'm very grateful to them for that. And so a lot of it is imagination. I read stories like that. Dee Henderson and the O'Malley series was just fascinating to me. And I love Blue Bloods. I love that family dynamics and that show for the most part. So I just kind of took the combination of all that and created this this family in my head, and tried to get it in the book as realistically as possible.
I know you have several books that have children, and you have a lot of POV chapters from kids' perspectives. Do you have like kids in your family that you talk to? How would you react to the situation, or is it just really getting in that mindset again?
Well, I have 2 kids, so thinking back, somebody mentioned one of my books. I think it was Always Watching with Wade and his daughter Amy. That's who you're thinking of. Yeah, she's. But somebody said, you know, she seemed younger, to act younger than a 12-year-old. And I was thinking, well, you know, maybe a little bit, but I was kind of basing her on my daughter, who was, you know, kind of sheltered, a little protective, and, you know, that kind of thing. And so, and which was pretty much how the job in this story was. And so it would make sense that she might be a little younger than your average worldly 12-year-old, I guess. I don't know. It's really sad to put worldly and 12-year-old together, but
yeah, unfortunately.
So I try to think, you know, based on my kids' ages. I have a 19-year-old daughter now and a 17-year-old son now, and so I can kind of look back and see how they were, and that's kind of how I take their, you know, to write kids, I guess. Anyway, yeah.
What is your process? Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying, what is your process in writing a book? Caleb and I just had a little discussion, and he said, I want to know what her process is. Like, if she gets a story idea, how does she start, and what's the whole process? Like, do you plot it out? Are you a pantser, a plotter, or how do you do that?
Yes.
A plantser. You're a plantser like me.
Well, I am a pantser that is kind of leaning toward more plotting these days. My poor brain doesn't quite work the way it did 10 years ago. And I get to, you know, for the most part, my process is I have to really get that first scene where I want it. Once I have the first opening scene kind of where I want it for the moment, then I can kind of get going on the rest of the story. It's that first scene is the kicker for me. I come up with the characters. I kind of, especially in a series, if the characters have been in a previous, you know, book, then I kind of know their background. For example, I'm working on this last book in the Blue Justice series, and my hero in the story is Link St. John. So he's been in the previous 3 books, and now, so I know him. I pretty much have a really good picture of him, an idea, and that kind of stuff. Well, the heroine, who I won't name because I'm probably gonna have to change her name, and she's a complete stranger to me. I don't know her, and I was really struggling with trying to write this story, and I kept coming up. It wasn't writer's block. It was just, well, okay, maybe it was writer's block. I don't know. I don't.
She wasn't speaking to you.
Yeah, I just couldn't figure out what to do with her. And so what I had to do was I sat down with Lynn Blackburn, and when we sat there and we brainstormed this character and just really got her to where I knew who she was. I knew what her background was. I knew what her purpose in the story was. All that was missing when I tried to start writing. And so for me, my process has to be character development. I just have to know the characters, and then I can kind of put them into the first chapter of the story. And like this book, I wrote 3 first chapters until I was happy with the 3rd one, and I've got the other 2. I may use them somehow, some way. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I hate to throw away all those words, but it's just it is what it is.
The first chapter was so hard to do. I have the very similar experience. I think I wrote 7 different first chapters before I finally picked one. And I mean, right, you can't move on.
Yeah, you just gotta keep at it until you get it right, until you're satisfied with it. And so anyway, and then I can I've been kind of plotting a few chapters. Okay, I need to get to this point. How am I going to get here?
Yes.
And then I'll write that part, and then I'll get to that point, and I'm like, okay, what's next? And so then I have to kind of plot a few more chapters and figure out, well, I've got to get to this point. This has to happen. How am I going to get from this point to this point? And then I'll figure that out and then write that and then go from there. So I always kind of know the ending. The ending is just kind of comes to me. I don't know. I know how I want it to end. So.
Are you ever surprised by the ending? Like, do you get there and say, oh, I didn't see this coming? Sometimes.
Yeah. It's like, oh, he wasn't the villain after all. Well, dang, where'd you come from? Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
I'm writing a series of books, and Caleb is too. So when you're carrying your characters into the second, maybe even the third books, and you have a mystery suspense that doesn't get totally solved until the second or the third book, how do you end the first book or continue without upsetting or disrupting your reader, and to get them to say, bite at the bit to get, to the next novel without doing it wrong?
Well, to be honest, I don't think you can.
Uh-oh, there we go, Kayla.
There you go. No, I mean, that's just my personal opinion, and I speak from experience when I say this, because I don't know if you've read it yet or not, but I have the Deadly Reunion series, and it's 3 books, and it starts out with When the Smoke Clears, and I have a villain in this book, but there's an overarching villain that nobody finds out who he is or what actually happened until the 3rd book in the series. And in the first book now, and what we did is we wrap up the person after Alexis. She's the, I think that's her name. Anyway, she is the heroine in the story. Okay, so I wrap that part up, but we leave this one thread kind of hanging. And into the second book. And in the second book, there's a whole nother story, a whole nother, 2 characters, hero and heroine. They have their conflict and their resolution and all that. And I wrap up the bad guy in that story, but there's still that one piece hanging into the 3rd book.
How do you keep that one piece hanging?
I'm sorry?
How do you keep that one piece hanging?
Well,
I know that's it, because my series is sort of like that, but it's like, how do you do it without making it so obvious but keep people wondering and not, pop their, well, it seems like it would be so hard. You have to keep practicing it, I think, right?
Because I'm trying to think how I actually did it. I just didn't wrap it up. I kept having, I wrote from that villain's point of view. And so I never named him, and I don't think I can't remember if I just gave him a nickname or if it was just he and him. But all of his point of view scenes were pretty short, like snippets. And while he was in there, I tried to bring in a couple of other characters that were talking to him, and I named them. And so they could kind of be like the red herring.
Oh, yes. Can you, for people who don't know what a red herring is, I didn't 3 years ago. I do now, but can you explain what a red herring is?
Okay. A red herring is where the author brings in a character or a situation or something, and it makes the reader think that, okay, this is the bad guy for whatever reason. And then because there's some kind of connection that makes that character, either they were at the crime scene, or they had a fight with that, the person that was killed just the night before, or they have no alibi or whatever. It makes it, and this person could actually be the villain. And so the author brings that character in, introduces that character to make the reader think that, all the while writing the story in such a way to reveal the true villain and make the reader go, I should have seen that back here, kind of thing, and so that's what a red herring is. I'm not going to call it a rabbit trail, because we don't do rabbit trails in fiction, but I'm going to say it's just kind of, and it's not misleading the reader. It's not writing it in such a way that the reader feels cheated or, that way, but it has to feel natural, and it has to come natural, that kind of thing.
I know you're going back to the first chapters. One of my favorites of your books, the first chapter, was with the one Without Warning, with the restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
I think I was actually at Blue Ridge when I first read it, and I can remember sitting, on the edge of the bed, just reading the first chapter. It was probably about 11:30, and it got to the very end of the scene where the chain was banging against the window, and it was almost like, Alfred Hitchcock. It wasn't wasn't gory, wasn't a jump scare. It was just, I had to go turn on the light. I was like,
it's supposed to be really creepy.
How many times did you have to rewrite that one to get it, to that perfect way?
Oh, that was a fun scene to write. Actually, I enjoyed that. I knew I wanted to open it really creepy, the story. And I was picturing myself if I was sitting in a restaurant after hours, it was dark. Of course, there's always the creepy basement where they keep all their stuff, the storage area. And I had no idea about the rest of the story. Like I hadn't plotted it out. I didn't know.
You just loved the scene, so you wrote it, and then the story came. I love it.
Story around this scene, and that was crazy. I don't recommend that. It can be very stressful. But it was so much fun to write that scene. I just had it in my head. I was like, I got to write the scene, and I could just hear the chain. Yes. Right. And I'm like, what is that? Oh yeah. And then you come in and you find this dead body hanging there, and I was like, oh, okay, that was really cool. Now I got to figure out the rest of the story around this scene. So that's the way I did. That's the way I wrote that book.
Yeah. I like that. Well, I know you have so many different professions that you write about. If that's the right terminology. Firefighter, trauma surgeons, private investigators. How did you pick? Which profession your characters would have?
Well, that's a really good question. Because my background is none of that. My background, I was actually a special ed teacher for 12 years. And so for me to start writing about all these different, very hero-worthy professions and to do justice to them, because I certainly, I don't want to write anything that, could not be read by someone in that profession.
Right.
I picture I'm writing law enforcement and I'm a former teacher, and I don't want a cop to pick up my book and go, and just be like, what in the world was she thinking? So what I have to give God credit here, because he's just put people in my life and put me in situations where I've had people to volunteer to say, hey, I'm former FBI. If you need any help, or like, hello, yes, where's your card? Thank you.
Yeah.
Seriously,
that's awesome.
I know, it's amazing. And so I was at Blue Ridge. What year was this? Probably 2011. No, it was before then. 2008, 2009. I don't remember. I wasn't on staff. I was just there to attend and take classes and learn. But I had sold my first series to Revell, and my very first book with them was coming out in May 2010, I think. And sorry, get my years all mixed up.
That's what you said. I think you said 2010 was your first book.
Yeah, I think it was. Well, 2010 was the first Revell book. 2008 was the first Love Inspired book. So I think there was 2 years between them. Anyhow, all that to say, the year before that book was supposed to come out, I'm at Blue Ridge, and I'm sitting in the lobby. You know how we have lobby time, and I'm sitting there with Stephen James and Kit Wilkerson and Chip McGregor, and then this man comes and he sits down and he's like, we start talking, and he asked me what I write, and I told him, and I was like, yeah, I really need to find somebody in the FBI, somebody that knows something about the FBI who can really critique my stuff, because I have an FBI agent in there. And that's not my thing, and I'm really, really nervous. And he goes, well, I am a retired special agent, if you would like to see your story. And I'm like, yes.
God does amazing things during lobby time at Blue Ridge. He really does.
I was just like, thank you. And because I had really been nervous about this, because I knew there was stuff in there that could be so much better. And I'd done my research online, that kind of stuff, but it's not the same as having an actual FBI agent.
Right.
And his name is Wayne, and he and I have another friend who, through Wayne, who also reads in my stuff. She also is a retired FBI special agent, and saw his name in the back of one of my books, emailed him and said, I want to read her stories for her and give her feedback too. So,
wow.
I have two. Every story I write, they both read and critique it for me. And
amazing.
It is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's just, I could go on and on. So many stories like that. I went to Killer Nashville. I was writing the Air Force continuity book for Love Inspired, and my dad was in the Air Force. That was 50 years ago. Things have changed since then.
Yes.
And I meet this guy. He's he's an Air Force pilot, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll whatever you need, just ask me questions." I was like, come on. that's just God putting people there for me to say, I need to pick your brain.
That's amazing. Are there any locations or places that you've tried to visit? I know you had one of your novels set in I think Charleston, and I know you live in South Carolina. But do you try to set your books in a place where you can physically travel to and get the experience of what it's like there?
Pretty much. I like my series for, I want to say, the Deadly Reunion series, and I want to say the Elite Guardians and the Blue Justice. They're all set in Columbia for various reasons. I went to the University of South Carolina in Columbia, so I know Columbia pretty well. But the funny thing is, and only one reader has caught this, and I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to get all these emails. But I had originally planned to set the Elite Guardian series in Greenville, South Carolina, where I live now. So the first one is in Greenville. The rest of them are set in Columbia, and nobody. I got one reader who emailed me about that. I said, "Wait a minute,
you did not catch that." I didn't catch that.
I didn't catch it either till the third book. No, I didn't realize I had done that. It's so crazy. I didn't keep very good notes on the first story.
Do you ever go back
in reverse order? So I didn't catch that. I think I read the second one first, and then the first one after that, and I did not notice it at all.
I know. It's like one reader. The only reason I realized it because a reader emailed me about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because I guess I had started out thinking, okay, I'm going to put this in Greenville, but then I had done the proposal to sell the next series, which was based in Columbia, and so my brain was in Columbia for this book, and I just stayed there. So anyway, that was kind of funny.
Lynette, do you ever go back and read your books before you start the next book in the series? You go read the first and the second one before you start the third one?
I never read any of my published stuff.
That's something I've wondered as well.
I want to change.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No, I don't read anything that's in final book form.
Wow. I wonder if that's common. Like, I wonder if most authors are like don't want to read stuff that they've published.
I don't know. I mean, I just know that I would see too many things that I'd want to change. I'd want to tweak a sentence, tighten. I mean, no, I'm just not torturing myself with that.
Well, what do you like to read for fun? I mean, do you get to the point where you can't read? I mean, we're reading for pleasure. You want to go back and rewrite something, or what do you enjoy reading?
As far as rewriting it?
Oh, no, as far as like just for pleasure.
Oh, for pleasure. Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of my friends' books and stuff, like Terry Blackstock, Colleen Coble, Carrie Stewart Parks, Lynn Blackburn. I usually read hers before they come out there. And, I usually try to read in my genre just because I like the stories. And I love historicals. But the problem is when I start reading, if I'm reading an historical and writing a romantic suspense, all of my characters start talking like they're from the 1600s, 1800s. I'm like, no, we shall not. We will not. So my dialogue gets thrown by that. It's really funny. Or comedy. If I read something really funny, then all of a sudden my characters are stand-up comics. No, I'm writing serious stuff. Just scary, not funny. So usually if I read something out of my genre, before I go back to writing, I have to at least read something with that suspense feel to it. So, and I do like I like several secular authors that I read pretty much anything they put out. But for the most part, I stick with the Christian CBA.
I've heard some authors say that they cannot read in their genre while they're writing in that genre. They can't read in the same genre they're writing from because for some reason it throws off their focus. But I feel the same way that you do. It has to get my mind set in the right way to be. But yeah, well, and we've only got a few minutes left. For just a minute, I know you've had several books released recently. Tell us a little bit more about those, and what audience might enjoy them.
Okay, say that again because you blipped out for a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. You've had several books released. I know you had one, I think this month that just came out. Tell me a little bit more about those and who, what audience might especially enjoy them.
Okay, yeah. Call to Protect is book 2 in the Blue Justice series, and it actually releases July 31st, but I think people are. Yeah, it's not that. We're not there yet. Okay. I lose track of what day and month it is. So it releases July 31st. It's book 2, and it's Chloe and Blake's story, and she's a canine handler. She does a canine cop for Columbia. And then I had, what else did I have come out? I had a love inspired book come out in June and one in July. The June one was called Vanished in the Night, and it's probably the last one in the Wrangler's Corner series.
That's the one I'm reading that one right now.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I like it.
Oh, cool, thanks. And then Explosive Force it came out in July, and that is also part of the continuity series that I wrote with 7 other authors, which was a fun project. And so I think I was book 6, I think. So anyway, those were the 3 that came out June and July. And then, in I think it's September or October, maybe October. I remember. We have Danny Petrie and Dee Henderson and I did another an anthology of 3 novellas. And so we have those coming out. I think it's in September. It might be end of September, beginning of October. So I've had quite a few exciting releases coming out, and it's been fun. Yeah.
That's good. Now, if somebody wants to get in contact with you or, to find out a little bit more about you, where's a good place for them to do that?
Best place to do that is probably on my website at www.LynetteEason.com. I'm on Facebook. I think that's just facebook.com/LynetteEason or Lynette.Eason, but if you do a search, you can find me. And that's pretty much where you'll learn about me. I try to interact quite a bit on Facebook with the readers. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Most of my interactions are going to be on Twitter and Facebook. Instagram is great. I know people love it, and that's where they are mostly. I just haven't gotten there yet.
Well,
understandable.
Yeah. For some reason, Instagram, I'm not quite fluent in that. Like, Facebook is, really fun. Instagram I don't know. I haven't quite gotten there yet, but I need to.
I like it. I've had several people try to help me really get excited about it, and including my daughter, and I'm like, eh.
I got to watch a YouTube video on how to use it before I really use it.
I love YouTube. I learned lots from YouTube. I Google everything.
Me too.
Always a good habit. Always a good habit. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us. Before I let you go, I do want to ask you one last question. If you had one piece of advice you could give to up and coming author or an aspiring author, what would that be?
I would just have to say, write the story that you have. Don't worry about the craft. Don't worry about anything. Just get the words out there. Get the story into the computer. And my philosophy is you can't fix a blank page. So
I love that.
Yeah, once you have your story there and you have words to work with, you can get feedback. I have lots of advice. I won't give it all here, but yeah, get that story down. Whatever. Don't worry about whether it's good or not. Just tell it. And I guess one other thing is once you have that, or at least part of it, don't be afraid to put it out there and get feedback about it.
Great advice. Really great advice. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this. This is actually going to be one of Sherry Lynn's last podcasts that she'll be doing with me.
Yeah.
She's passing the hosting baton on to me, but I insisted that she join me.
You're doing a great job. Caleb, you're doing a great job.
You guys are so much
awesome. Lynette, I want to ask you real quick. I want to get your permission to make a meme of what you just said. You can't fix a blank page.
Oh, sure.
And I'll quote you on that. I'm going to put it on Facebook and Twitter.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
But
thank you so much. It was so great talking to you.
Oh, great talking to you, too. Y'all have a good one.
You as well.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.